news to share. She announced a partnership between her podcast, Show Me Something, and Marriott Bonvoy. Okay, the Fever star will host a 4-episode limited series sponsored by the hotel brand called Live from the Bracket, which debuts on March 24th. Cunningham also appeared in New York City to reveal the news while discussing the NCAA tournament with fans, okay? Here she said, it's almost that time for March Madness, Cunningham said. We are excited to be teaming up with Marriott Bonvoy for Live from the Bracket. So we are here in New York City to get your college basketball takes. Let's get into it.
Partnership announcements, podcast deals, hotel brands, March Madness coverage in New York City. Sophie Cunningham is building an empire off the basketball court, and it's all happening while her contract status with the Indiana Fever hangs in the balance. That collaboration with Marriott Bonvoy she just announced, that's not just a side gig. That's the blueprint for how WNBA players are monetizing their association with Caitlin Clark. And it's about to make the Fever's free agency decisions a whole lot more complicated.
Added, Sophie Cunningham announces career news before 8th WNBA season, all right? Here it says, Sophie Cunningham of the Indiana Fever had a disappointing 2025 WNBA season, which ended with a semifinal loss to the Las Vegas Aces in the playoffs. The Fever could have been among the favorites to win the championship had they not dealt with numerous injuries throughout the year.
Let's establish the facts first. Sophie Cunningham played on a one-year, $100,000 contract with Indiana in 2025. That deal is done. She's a free agent. And under the new collective bargaining agreement that the WNBA finalized in mid-March, she's in line for a significant pay raise. How significant? We're talking potentially double or triple that base salary, depending on which teams come calling. The question isn't whether Sophie gets paid more. The question is whether the Fever are willing to match what other teams will offer, or if they let her walk because they're not paying attention to what's actually happening here.
Season, I believe they would have. But hey, it is what it is. Here it says, Cunningham spent their first 6 seasons with the Phoenix Mercury before the Fever acquired her last offseason via trade. The former Missouri guard found success in Indiana, averaging 8.6 points per game on 47% shooting, 3.5 rebounds, 1.2 assists per game. But in August, Cunningham suffered a torn MCL, which ended her 7th WNBA season. And I believe that came against the Connecticut Sun, where they play dirty. They're a bunch of low-down, dirty players.
Because here's what makes Sophie Cunningham's situation different from a typical free agent. She averaged 8.6 points per game on 47% shooting. She grabbed 3.5 rebounds and dished 1.2 assists per contest. Those are solid role player numbers, but they're not franchise-altering statistics. In a normal market, that production gets you a modest raise and a handshake. But this isn't a normal market. Sophie Cunningham didn't just play basketball in Indiana. She became part of the Caitlin Clark phenomenon. And the financial benefits of that association are stacking up in ways that go far beyond her WNBA salary. That torn MCL she suffered in August against the Connecticut Sun ended her season prematurely. Brianna Hartley's dirty play took out one of Caitlin's most important teammates at the worst possible time. But even injured, even watching from the sideline during the playoffs, Sophie's off-court brand kept growing.
But see, this is what happens, and this is why we gotta be careful. You gotta know, man, other WNBA players are going to see things like this, and they are going to see the success that Sophie Cunningham has garnered off the floor. Now, we don't know how much. We don't know if she's made a couple $100,000. We don't know if she's made millions off the floor. We don't know. But free agents are going to see Sophie Cunningham's off the floor success, which a large part of it is because of Caitlin Clark and her association. Let's be clear here. When she defended Caitlin Clark and attacked JC Sheldon in retaliation, okay, she jumped up to 1 million followers so fast. A bunch of free agents are going to see her success off the floor.
Now here's where this gets interesting. Other free agents around the league are watching Sophie Cunningham's success very carefully. They see the podcast deals, they see the sponsorship announcements, they see her Instagram follower count, which exploded to over 1 million after she defended Caitlin Clark against Chennedy Carter's cheap shot and called out DeJohnny Carrington's intentional eye poke. That moment when Sophie stepped up and protected her teammate? That wasn't just good basketball culture. That was $1 million career move, whether she intended it that way or not. And now every veteran free agent looking at the Fever's roster is doing the math. Play next to Caitlin Clark, be a good teammate, defend her when the league's dirty players come after her, and watch your off-court earning potential multiply. The problem is that not everyone who wants those benefits is willing to actually do the work that Sophie did.
To come and be MVP and all of this stuff. We need people that are coming. We know you're going to reap some benefits. You're going to gain popularity. You're probably going to make some extra off the court money, etc. We need to make sure you are here for the right reasons, though. And I feel like the front office has to do a better job of that. Make no mistake about it. Sophie Cunningham is showing how it's done. Regardless of if...
Think about what happened with Temi Fagbenel and Damiris Dantas last season. Both veterans came to Indiana with their own agendas. Fagbenel wanted to reestablish herself as a starter after falling out of favor in Minnesota. Dantas came looking for a payday and playing time she wasn't getting elsewhere. Neither one of them bought into what the team needed. Neither one of them prioritized getting Caitlin the ball. And both of them became problems that the coaching staff couldn't solve because the front office hadn't properly vetted their intentions before signing them. Sophie Cunningham, on the other hand, came to Indiana and immediately understood the assignment. Pass Caitlin the ball, space the floor, hit open threes, play physical defense, protect your star when opponents cross the line. She did all of those things consistently, and her off-court success followed naturally from being a good teammate.
All right, man. Indiana Fever news, fresh off the press. Sophie Cunningham with a big announcement prior to potentially returning to the Indiana Fever. This is something that we definitely have to pay attention to because Sophie the Trophy, the blonde bomber, 1/3 of Tres Leches, is a key and vital part of this team. And I'm hoping and praying that the bonehead Indiana Fever front office and head coach will make the right moves to secure Caitlin Clark's right teammates. It's a big deal, y'all. We got to break this thing down.
So when Sophie talks about this being a vital moment for the franchise, when she emphasizes that the front office needs to make the right moves to secure Caitlin Clark's teammates, she's speaking from experience. She knows what it takes to succeed in that environment. She also knows that her market value has increased dramatically because of her association with the Fever's franchise player. The question is whether Indiana's front office, led by Kelly Krauskopf and head coach Stephanie White, understand the difference between players who want to be part of something special and players who just want to cash in on Caitlin's popularity. Because free agency is about to reveal which category everyone falls into. The Fever have decisions to make, and those decisions will determine whether they can build on last season's playoff appearance or whether they waste another year of Caitlin Clark's rookie contract dealing with roster dysfunction.
And I definitely think if this team was healthy and Stephanie White got out of Caitlin Clark's way, they 1,000% would have won that WNBA title last season. I believe they would have. But hey, it is what it is. Here it says, Cunningham spent their first 6 seasons with the Phoenix Mercury before the Fever acquired her last offseason via trade. The former Missouri guard found success in Indiana, averaging 8.6 points per game on 47% shooting, 3.5 rebounds, 1.2 assists per game.
Let's talk about the injury situation that derailed Indiana's championship hopes. The Fever were legitimate contenders in 2025 until the injury bug hit. Sophie Cunningham's torn MCL came in late August. Caitlin Clark suffered a groin injury in that same game against Connecticut that lingered through the playoffs. By the time the postseason arrived, Indiana was limping into the semifinals against Las Vegas, without 2 of their most important players at full strength. They lost that series, but the consensus around the league was clear. A healthy Fever team wins that matchup and probably goes on to compete for the title. That's the context Sophie's operating in as she hits free agency. She knows this team was close. She knows they have the foundation to win a championship if they stay healthy and make smart roster additions, but she also knows that Stephanie White made questionable coaching decisions throughout the season, particularly in how she utilized Caitlin Clark. Too much off-ball movement, not enough pick and roll, rotations that didn't maximize their best players' strengths. Those issues need to be addressed, and Sophie's probably wondering whether the coaching staff has learned from those mistakes or if they're going to repeat them in 2026.
To share, she announced a partnership between her podcast Show Me Something and Marriott Bonvoy. Okay, the Fever star will host a 4-episode limited series sponsored by the hotel brand called Live from the Bracket, which debuts on March 24th. Cunningham also appeared in New York City to reveal the news while discussing the NCAA tournament with fans, okay? Here she said, "It's almost that time for March Madness," Cunningham said. "We are excited to be teaming up with Marriott Bonvoy for Live from the Bracket. So we are here in New York City to get your college basketball takes. Let's get into it." So let's take a look at this.
Yes!
No one stands a chance.
How far would you travel to watch your favorite team play basketball?
That is a good one. It is almost that time for March Madness. We are so excited to be teaming.
The Marriott Bonvoy partnership Sophie just announced is a perfect example of how WNBA players are finally starting to build real wealth outside of their league salaries. Live from the Bracket is a 4-episode limited series that debuts March 24th on Marriott Bonvoy's YouTube channel. Sophie and her podcast co-host will discuss March Madness, interview special guests, and create content around college basketball and travel. That's a major hotel brand investing marketing dollars into a WNBA player's platform. That doesn't happen unless Sophie has built a legitimate audience that brands want to reach. And where did that audience come from? A significant portion of it came from Fever fans who appreciated how Sophie treated Caitlin Clark. The loyalty she showed her teammate translated directly into follower growth, which translated into sponsorship opportunities, which is now translating into real money. This is the new WNBA economy, where your on-court role matters less than your off-court brand if you can position yourself correctly. Here's what makes Sophie Cunningham's free agency situation so critical for the Indiana Fever. This isn't just about retaining one role player who averaged 8.6 points per game. This is about setting a precedent for how the franchise values players who actually understand what it takes to win with Caitlin Clark. Sophie proved she gets it. She proved she's willing to sacrifice personal statistics for team success. She proved she'll stand up for her teammates when things get physical. Those qualities are rare in professional basketball, and they're especially rare among veterans who have their own career goals and financial pressures. The Fever front office needs to recognize that losing Sophie Cunningham sends a message to the rest of the league. It tells potential free agents that Indiana doesn't prioritize chemistry and culture. It suggests that the organization is willing to let good teammates walk over contract disputes. And it opens the door for teams like Las Vegas, New York, or Minnesota to swoop in and add a proven winner who knows how to play alongside a generational talent. Let's be specific about the financial dynamics here. Under the old collective bargaining agreement, Sophie's $100,000 salary was standard for a veteran role player. But the new CBA, which was finalized in March, includes significant salary cap increases and adjustments to veteran minimum contracts. Players with Sophie's experience level are now looking at base salaries in the $200,000 to $250,000 range, with potential for more if multiple teams get into a bidding war. That's a substantial raise, and it's one that the Fever need to be prepared to match or exceed if they want to keep her. But here's the complication. The Fever also need to address other roster holes. They need a legitimate backup point guard who can run the offense when Caitlin sits. They need frontcourt depth after Aaliyah Boston struggled with consistency in the playoffs. They need perimeter defenders who can take pressure off Caitlin on that end of the floor. All of those needs require financial resources, and Kelly Krauskopf has to balance retaining Sophie against adding other pieces that make the team better. The smart move is to prioritize Sophie. She's a known commodity. She's proven she can handle the pressure of playing in Indiana's media environment. She's shown she won't get jealous when Caitlin gets all the attention and endorsement deals. Those intangibles matter more than raw talent when you're building around a player like Caitlin Clark. You need teammates who are secure enough in their own careers to let the star be the star. Sophie demonstrated that quality every single day last season. Compare that to what happened with Kelsey Mitchell, who spent the entire season looking uncomfortable with her reduced role in the offense. Or Erica Wheeler, who never fully bought into being a backup despite her veteran status. Or Nalissa Smith, who publicly complained about not getting enough touches. The Fever's roster was full of players who said the right things in interviews but couldn't actually subordinate their egos when it mattered. Sophie was one of the few exceptions, and that's exactly why she's irreplaceable. Now let's talk about the elephant in the room. Stephanie White's coaching decisions. Sophie Cunningham can control how she plays and how she treats her teammates. She cannot control whether the head coach puts her in position to succeed, and White made some baffling choices throughout the 2025 season that directly impacted Sophie's effectiveness. There were games where Sophie would hit 3 or 4 early threes and then barely touch the ball in the second half. There were defensive possessions where White's switching scheme left Sophie guarding players 4 inches taller. There were crucial playoff moments where Sophie sat on the bench while less effective players got minutes. Those coaching decisions matter when Sophie is evaluating whether to return to Indiana. She can make more money playing elsewhere. She can find a coach who will use her more consistently. She can join a team with a clearer path to a championship. The only reason to stay in Indiana is if she believes the organization is committed to fixing the problems that prevented them from winning it all in 2025. And right now, with Stephanie White taking on side projects and the front office staying quiet about their free agency plans, it's not clear that commitment exists. Here's what the Fever need to understand. Sophie Cunningham's market value is only going to increase as more teams realize what she brings to a championship-caliber roster. The Phoenix Mercury, where she spent her first 6 seasons, would love to bring her back. The Las Vegas Aces could use her three-point shooting and toughness. The New York Liberty are always looking for veterans who can handle big moments. Any of those teams would offer Sophie a competitive salary and a real chance to win a title. Indiana's advantage is the relationship she's built with Caitlin and the off-court opportunities that come with playing in that market. But relationships and opportunities don't pay the bills if the contract offer is insulting. The front office needs to come to Sophie with a serious offer. 2 years, $450,000 total, with team options for a 3rd year. That's the floor for this negotiation. Anything less suggests the Fever don't understand her value, and if they lowball her, Sophie should absolutely test the market and see what other teams are willing to pay. She's earned the right to maximize her earnings, especially now that she's built a platform that will generate income long after her playing career ends. Think about the bigger picture here. The WNBA is at an inflection point. Caitlin Clark's rookie season brought unprecedented attention to the league. Television ratings tripled, attendance records fell across the league, merchandise sales exploded. The next few years represent a golden opportunity for players to capitalize on that growth and build generational wealth. Sophie Cunningham is positioned perfectly to take advantage of that opportunity, but only if she makes smart decisions about where she plays and who she aligns herself with. Staying in Indiana makes sense if the organization demonstrates they're serious about winning. It makes sense if Stephanie White adjusts her coaching approach to maximize Caitlin's talents. It makes sense if the front office brings in complementary pieces who understand their roles. But if the Fever waste this offseason making lateral moves and bringing in more veterans with bad attitudes, Sophie should absolutely explore other options. She's got leverage now, she's got options, and she's got a brand that transcends whatever team name is on her jersey. The Live from the Bracket series she's launching with Marriott Bonvoy is just the beginning. That's the kind of partnership that leads to bigger opportunities, more podcast sponsorships, potential television work after her playing career, maybe even ownership stakes in WNBA franchises down the line. Sophie's building something that will outlast her playing days, and the team she chooses to play for next season needs to support that vision, not interfere with it. So here's the question Indiana's front office needs to answer. Are you willing to pay Sophie Cunningham what she's worth, both financially and in terms of respect? Are you willing to build a roster that actually fits around Caitlin Clark's strengths? Are you willing to hold Stephanie White accountable for the coaching mistakes that cost you a championship last season? Because if the answer to any of those questions is no, Sophie should take her talents elsewhere and let the Fever figure out how to replace the chemistry and leadership she provided. The announcement about her Marriott partnership isn't just Sophie promoting a business deal. It's Sophie showing the entire league that she's got options. It's a reminder that WNBA players don't have to rely solely on their basketball salaries anymore. And it's a message to the Fever front office: make me a real offer, or watch me build my empire somewhere else. What do you think the Fever should offer Sophie to bring her back? Drop your number in the comments, and let me know if you think she's worth more than the Fever are willing to pay.